Russian-American ballet dancer freed from Russian prison after treason conviction. Ksenia Karelina, a Russian-American woman who had been sentenced to 12 years in a Russian prison for treason, has been released and is on her way back to the United States. Her release was confirmed on Thursday by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who praised the efforts of President Donald Trump in securing her freedom. American Ksenia Karelina is on a plane back home to the United States. She was wrongfully detained by Russia for over a year, and President Trump secured her release, Rubio announced on X, formerly Twitter. He added that the president remains committed to bringing all wrongfully detained Americans home. Who is Ksenia Karelina? Karelina, 33, at the time of her arrest, is a U.S. citizen who has lived in Los Angeles since becoming naturalized in 2021. She is known to be an amateur ballet dancer and had traveled to Russia in January 2024 to visit her elderly grandmother, as well as her parents and sister in Yekaterinburg. The visit was meant to last just 2 weeks, after which she planned to return to her home in California. However, during her trip, Russian authorities detained her and accused her of treason. The basis for the charge? A small online donation of about $51 USD to a US-based charity that provides humanitarian support to Ukraine. According to Russian prosecutors, the donation amounted to supporting anti-Russian activities during an ongoing conflict in Ukraine, and they treated it as an act of betrayal against Russia. In a closed trial held in August 2024, Karelina pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 12 years in a penal colony. The United States only learned of her arrest weeks later on February 8, 2024. Her supporters had set up a website to raise awareness of her case, arguing that she was being punished for a minor charitable act and used as a political pawn amid heightened U.S.-Russia tensions. The prison where she was held. Karelina was held in a high-security facility in Yekaterinburg, the same city where Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich was previously convicted of espionage and sentenced to 16 years in prison. Gershkovich's case drew international attention and was part of a separate prisoner swap last year that also involved other high-profile Americans like former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan and U.S. resident and Putin critic Vladimir Kara-Murza. Those Americans were exchanged for several Russian citizens imprisoned abroad, including convicted assassin Vadim Krasikov. How was Karelina released? Karelina's release was part of a prisoner exchange negotiated between the United States and Russia. The swap was coordinated in Abu Dhabi with the help of the United Arab Emirates. In exchange for Karelina, the U.S. handed over Arthur Petrov, a dual German-Russian national accused of illegally exporting sensitive American microelectronics to Russia, likely for military or intelligence use. The deal was arranged through behind-the-scenes diplomacy involving the CIA, Russian intelligence agencies, and intermediaries from the UAE. According to U.S. officials, the operation was led by CIA Director John Ratcliffe. A pattern of prisoner swaps. Karelina's case is the second high-profile release of an American citizen from Russia since Trump returned to the White House in early 2025. In February, Mark Fogel, a U.S. teacher who had spent more than 3 years in Russian custody for carrying medical marijuana, was released in exchange for Russian businessman Alexander Vinnik, who had been accused of money laundering. These swaps have become increasingly common as the relationship between Washington and Moscow remains tense, especially in light of the ongoing war in Ukraine and other geopolitical disputes. What happens now? While Karelina is now safely on her way home, other Americans are still being held in Russia under serious charges. Among them is Stephen Hubbard, another U.S. citizen who has not yet been released and whose case remains unresolved. Rubio reiterated that the U.S. government would continue fighting for the return of every American detained abroad, no matter how complicated the circumstances. Ksenia's return is a victory, but our work is not over, Rubio said. We will not stop until all Americans wrongfully imprisoned overseas are brought home. Karelina's release brings relief to her family and supporters, but it also highlights how individuals can get caught in the crossfire of global politics, even over something as small as a $50 donation.